Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dr. Neeta Singla, and I extend a very warm welcome to all our attendees. Today's is our Institute's TB and COVID echo session. Those of you who are new to our sessions, our institute conducts these knowledge sharing echo sessions for TB and MDR TB for last 3.5 years for all the medical as well as paramedical staff. These sessions comprise of a didactic and a case, didactic by an expert, and case discussion, case presentation and discussion by the faculty. The cases can be from the field, from the medical college. Anybody can present a case here and we can have a discussion by experts. Today's session is to share the existing knowledge about tuberculosis and COVID co-infection. This session is being done in collaboration with PGI Chandigarh. The experts for the day are Padma Awardee Professor Dr. D. Behra from PGI, and we have Dr. Rupak Singla from NITRD. Dr. Behra needs no introduction. He is the Chairman National Task Force for the National TB Program. He is a very well-known pulmonologist. He has been the officer on special duty at AIIMS Raipur. He has been ex-Dean Research and ex-Chairman Medical Department at PGI Chandigarh. He has been director of our institute, and we have soared high under his leadership. He has been awarded Padma Shri for his exemplary work in the field of pulmonary medicine. Sir, a very warm welcome to you, and we are very grateful to you for accepting our invitation to deliver the talk today. Along with Professor Behra, we have Dr. Rupak Singla. He heads the Department of TB and Chest at National Institute of TB and Respiratory Diseases and has an experience of more than 30 years to treat TB and MDR TB. He is also the technical expert to Central TB Division and is involved in framing the national guidelines for TB and MDR TB. Very warm welcome, Professor Singla. We also extend our welcome to our director, Dr. R.K. Vadhwa, who is the guiding light for us and who has been supporting us to run all these clinics. And we couldn't have done these clinics without his support. So a very warm welcome to you. I would also like to welcome Dr. Kumud Rai, Chairman ECHO India. ECHO India has been instrumental in supporting the NITRD to run these ECHO sessions. We extend a very warm welcome to Dr. Kumud Rai. And we also welcome all the faculty of medical colleges, chairmen and members of task forces, nodal DRTB center, DTOs, and other attendees. Very warm welcome to our senior faculty, Dr. Bharadwaj, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Dr. Radha, and I might have missed some names. Please excuse me for saying, but I welcome you all to our clinic today. Now I invite Dr. Singla to introduce the session to us.
Thank you, Dr. Neeta. A very, very warm welcome to everyone who has joined today. You see, India has the highest number of cases in the world for TB as well as MDR TB. And ever since this pandemic of COVID-19 started in our country in March this year, today, as we all know, we have more than 14.5 lakh cases of COVID-19. And every day around 50,000 new cases are being added. So by the time of evening this day, we may have more than 15 lakh cases. And in a high prevalence country for TB like ours, this TB and COVID-19 co-infection is likely to pose several issues. There could be epidemiological issues, diagnostic issues, therapeutic issues. And discuss these issues, our institute, that is NITRD, started this TB and COVID-19 co-infection echo clinics, and today is the 5th in that series. And we are really fortunate that none other than Padma Awardee Professor D. Behra, sir, has agreed to take a direct lecture for today. And he'll be talking about epidemiology of TB and COVID-19 co-infection, the current status. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us today. Over to you, Neeta.
Thank you, Professor Singla. I also, Dr. Prahlad Kumar, Dr. Sareen, and Dr. Sunil Anand have just joined us. So I welcome them to our session. Very warm welcome, sir. Now, before I invite Professor Behra to start his didactic, I would request everybody to put their mic on the mute mode and phones on the silent mode. We will be taking the questions at the end of the didactic. During the lecture, you are requested to type your comments or questions in the chat box so that we can take your questions immediately after the lecture. The icon for the chat box at the bottom of your screen. If time permits, we will take some live questions too. But if you have some burning questions, I suggest that you type them while the lecture is going on. Over to you, sir, Professor Behra, for his didactic on epidemiology of TB and COVID-19 co-infection and its current status.
So am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Nita, Professor Wadhwa, Director of NITRD, Professor Singla, Professor Sarin, Professor Rajendra Prasad, Professor Bharadwaj, Professor Radha, Professor Hukan from Nigrin, Shillong, and dear colleagues. Actually, when I came to know about this NITRD eco platform and their series of talks on TB and COVID, so I took this opportunity to request Dr. Wadhwa and Dr. Singla and Dr. Sarin so that they can share this through our medical college task force mechanism so that our colleges will be aware about the COVID and the TB. You know, nowadays, every day there is something or other lecture is going on. I think almost every day on the pulmonary medicine, there will be not less than 20 different lectures from different platforms throughout the country. However, the TB somehow remained neglected, although that should be our first priority. So I, again, in collaboration with the NITRD eco platform, as well as our task force mechanism, and during our last week, our journal task force mechanism, the chairman, Dr. Bharadwaj, and then our co-chairman of the NTF, Professor Rajendra Prasad, and the NTP technical advisor, Professor Sarin, they all agreed. And then we have decided to continue this in different zones so that our medical colleges will be knowing about what is going on about TB. So that is what is the background. And then with this now, I am supposed to speak about the epidemiology of TB and the COVID. Okay, so as Dr. Singla has already told you, this is the world data for COVID-19. As you all know, I did not tell much about that. As of today morning, out of 188 countries report, you can see we have got more than 16 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 and about 6,47,000 patients who have died by this date. Coming to our own country, you see the number is increasing day by day, and we are now the third country in the world having as far the number is concerned, and the number is 13,85,000 cases. And as Dr. Singla told, by the evening, you add another 40,000-50,000 cases, and more than 32,000 patients have, they died because of this COVID in India. This is a world COVID meter data. It is almost the figures are similar, but it all depends upon what time the data is captured. So it is almost the similar thing in India. As you can see, it is the third. Ours is the third common highest number, and then the death and the number I have already told you. Again, as we know, COVID-19 has killed hundreds of thousands of people, as we saw around the world. And its disruptive impact could kill millions more, that we all know. Now coming to TB, I am not going to talk about the TB burden, you all know that. So people ill with COVID-19 and TB show similar symptoms such as cough, fever, and difficulty in breathing. Both diseases attack primarily the lungs, and although both biological agents transmit mainly via close contact, incubation period there are some differences. Then again, while experience on the COVID-19 infection in TB patient remains limited, unfortunately that has not been reported, although both diseases are very common, particularly in certain countries. It is anticipated that people ill with both TB and COVID-19 may have poorer treatment outcomes, especially if TB treatment is interrupted. In many countries, restrictions of movement has been imposed for much of the population, so that has negatively impacted the access to health services for diseases like TB. Again, the other issue is the social stigma and discriminatory behavior. Both, the COVID-19 as well as TB, we all know that. So all measures should be urgently taken to ensure continuity of service during this period. So to ensure the continuity of TB services during the COVID-19 pandemic, the WHO has advocated people-centered care and prevention and infection control. That we'll discuss little more detail, and a rapid rollout of measures to minimize the healthcare visits, how it is to be done, the diagnosis, treatment, the use of digital technologies, then proactive planning, and then the leveraging the capacity. You see now, before that, going actually to the program issues, I'll just take a few minutes about the clinical aspects of TB and COVID. As you know, the COVID-19 can affect TB in two different ways. It can be direct effect and indirect effect. The direct effect will be, suppose there is a known TB patient and he develops COVID-19 infection. So that is what is the direct effect. And indirect effect, because of various factors, there will be indirect effect. Say, for example, diversion of the healthcare workers towards the COVID care. So then the TB care is neglected. Then diversion of healthcare facilities, the hospitals, DRTB centers, and other, the caregiving centers. Then restriction of movement, obviously patient cannot come, or the vice versa. And then the drug effects, the treatment, what is the interaction, and plus some of the drugs used for COVID-19 and their effect on the TB. And then obviously diversion of funds, because everybody now, everybody is COVID. So all attention, everything is diverted towards the, so then obviously there will be some cut in the funding for TB. So diversity. So these are some of the indirect effects. So you see what is the problem? Why we are worried? Because this, the initial suggestion showed that COVID-19 virus, if it's there will be additional deaths of 1.4 million people from TB, because some cases will go undiagnosed and untreated during the lockdown. Up to 6.3 million more TB is expected between now and 2025. And this will be a big setback for the global efforts to end TB by 5 to 8 years. This will be what will be the impact. These are, unfortunately, as I have told you in my opening remark, we don't have got many case series about the, what is the, when there is a dual infection, when there is TB disease as well as COVID infection, there are not much report. This is a chart which I have, got from a nice review article by Professor Rajendra Prasad and his group that is published in the Monaldi Archives for Chest Diseases just recently. And there, these are the only, you can see the case series of 49, 20, 69, and maybe 330. So there is not much experience how they behave about that. Again now starting from the spread, as we know, the SARS COVID is spread by multiple routes. It is mostly, by directly through the airborne droplets, and then when the other person inhales the respiratory droplets, there will be infection. Then there can be indirect means, as you can see, when these things are deposited in the surfaces, and if somebody touches them, so then that gets, and then it comes in contact with the oral mucosa, nasal mucosa, or the conjunctiva, etc. So that is how the thing. So therefore, to prevent this thing, wear a mask. Because why this is important? Because we have to try to understand what is the different mechanism of spread between the two diseases. So in the indirect, there will be cleaning of hands before touching, sharing objects. So there we have to wear mask, clean shared objects. After touching, clean shared objects. Before touching, clean hands. After touching, and so on. So these are the two important things which are different from that of the TB. Now coming to the virus and the TB, what is the difference of or what is the effect of the viral infection and the TB? As I told you, we don't have much experience of COVID-19 and TB, but this is the historical, the information that we are getting. That is the three diseases, that is influenza, the SARS-CoV-1, SARS COVID done by the COVID-1, and then the MERS, the Middle East, the type of infection. So that shows the influenza pandemic, the seasonal outbreaks. It is so the main important thing is the immune system hyperreaction. And during the time 1918-19 influenza pandemic, what happened? There was excess risk of death among individuals who are 25 to 35 years old, and it aggravated the pulmonary status of individuals with TB. Latent TB would become active. If there is a closed cavity, might open up, and various lesions might progress, leading to further deterioration of the pulmonary function. And then again, cytokines seems to play an important role in both COVID and TB. Plasma levels are associated with disease severity. Immune system hyperreaction could explain a poorer outcome. So as I told you, although there is limited data on MTB and a COVID-19 infection, coexistence might have a more severe evolution for the patient. And then you can see one of the things which is very well documented is during the Ebola outbreak in Guinea, in West Africa, that reduced the health services, and that has led to a 53% decrease in the diagnosis of TB. That is already known since 2016, and there is a mortality rate which has down. That means, what I'm trying to tell you, similar type of viral infections, they will affect the TB, both case detection as well as mortality. This is just this one shows the immune response to coronavirus infection. It's not only COVID-19, it is the other type, SARS-CoV and then the MERS-CoV. Coronavirus, you can see here the things take part in the T cells, the CD4, CD8, and also the cytokine storm, as you know, that happens similar to that of COVID. And remember, all these things are important for the immunity in TB, immunological reactions in TB. So therefore, this slide summarizes when the interaction between SARS-CoV and the MTB. We know it is from the SARS-CoV-1 and the MERS-CoV coronavirus. You see there will be poorer outcomes, delayed viral clearance, and then higher risk for disease spreading. That is how TB affects the SARS-CoV. And on the other hand, the SARS coronavirus 1, that will lead into immunosuppression, poor IgG response, diminution in the CD4, CD8 cells, and then corticosteroid use, which was done, that will have adverse effect on MTB. Similarly, the MERS type of coronavirus. So it is expected when there is SARS and a COVID, both way, again they can move in both ways. Like MTB, that is there will be rapid SARS, there will be limited, then the cytokine storm and latent form which can be reactivated. So these are the known and possible interaction between M. tuberculosis and various types of coronavirus, including the SARS-CoV-2. So then the certain questions come, are people with TB likely to be at increased risk of COVID-19 infection, illness and death? That I have already told you, although the same thing, it is expected there will be poor treatment outcomes. So then secondly, you see another important thing, please note, which is very well known, that the comorbidities and the comorbidity and the COVID-19. You see, if you see this chart, this diagram, you can see two one thing: the pulmonary, particularly the chronic diseases, and the diabetes. I think these are the two important things which are more important for TB. So rest of the thing I am not. Please focus on these two. The chronic pulmonary diseases and diabetes, they have got worst outcome in case of coronavirus, this COVID-19. So if there is a chronic lung disease and the diabetes, which are more associated with TB and which are more concerned about that. So if you see the association of diabetes and TB, the effect will be much more worse. So then, as we know, diabetes predictor of adverse outcome. So therefore, the optimizing the glucose control is very important. And again, you see the pulmonary, this is a pulmonary autopsy sample. There is a microvascular injury and a thrombosis, and then a ARDS-like picture. A TB patient having already damaged lung, and he is again coronavirus infection. You see, this type of things will also happen in the lung. This is how the X-ray looks like. You will know that it is to think of in a TB patient, and these things are added up. And this is how the course of the disease, particularly in the stage 2, where there is a pulmonary phase, you can see there will be abnormal chest imaging, then the many other things that will be aggravated if already there is a TB pathology. Then the question is, what should health authorities do? So all measures to ensure continuity of service. There should be prevention, basic infection prevention and control, cough etiquette, patient triage, diagnosis, treatment, proactive planning, the strengthening the human resources and capacity building. Then the staff should be familiarized with the COVID, same efforts to stop the spread of COVID, then use of availability and use of personal protective equipments, arrangements to reduce TB follow-up, enough TB medicines to be dispensed, special precautions for collecting, transporting the sputum samples when testing for TB, infection prevention and control measures, and then this is obviously ethical obligation. So then how can we protect people seeking TB care during the COVID-19 pandemic? There is a challenges of sudden surge, reallocation of healthcare facility, laboratory test, manpower, restriction of movements has created many problems, both for the patient as well as the healthcare worker. Then production of essential material, delivery of drugs, and then preventive measures. These are very important things. Then should all patients being evaluated for TB also be tested for COVID-19 and vice versa? So test for both if clinical features that are common to both diseases or simultaneous exposure to both diseases or presence of a risk factor for poor outcome to either disease, as I was hinting to you about chronic lung disease and the diabetes and HIV to that extent also. As pandemic progresses, the more and more people will be affected, and then the malnutrition, renal failure, liver disease, HIV outcome. These are the predictors of TB also. Please remember, I will show you data subsequently how it is so. Then can TB COVID be tested on the same type of specimen? The diagnostic methods are quite distinct. We know sputum and other biological specimen are used to diagnose TB. In COVID-19, it is the nasopharyngeal or oropharyngeal swabs or WAS, and sometimes the endobronchial aspirate or BAL can be used for COVID testing. So test for COVID-19 is less decentralized, whereas the infectious COVID-19 is now molecular testing. That I always complain that our gene expert machines are being now diverted for COVID-19. Although we are supposed to do both tests, but you all know where the attention lies. We all know that, where the focus and where the attention. So ladies and gentlemen, the attention of diagnosing using more and more COVID, more and more seminars are being diverted towards the COVID testing. Then obviously diagnosis of TB during COVID an issue. This is a critical during the lockdown, curtailment services, hospital close downs, travel restrictions, sputum transport and transport of items are the issue. Patients with mild to moderate symptoms of COVID are currently being asked to admitted, self-isolated at home, depending upon the policy. The symptoms are overlap. So therefore, it is very difficult to know whether the patient is having TB or not. So therefore, the TB community has to act very quickly, adapt and strengthen the TB service provision to maximize the health and the safety of our vulnerable TB patients. Safety of TB healthcare workers is very important. Then obviously issues like insurance coverage, giving them PPEs, then sputum producing handling procedures like aerosol generation. There also one should be very careful. Then the TB patients and patients with a high risk of TB disease, like close contacts, must be screened for COVID-19 when they are coming to a TB diagnostic facility. And patients who present with a cough of 2 weeks are less likely to screen positive for COVID-19, given the duration of cough usually in COVID-19. Then is the TB treatment different? People who have both TB and COVID-19, obviously the TB treatment is not different. Of course, the experience and joint management is limited. You remember many of the TB drugs are hepatotoxic, and many of the drugs and many of the disease as such is also having effect on the liver function. So we should be careful about that. However, suspension of TB treatment in COVID-19 patients should be exceptional. So TB preventive treatment for drug susceptible or drug resistant TB disease should continue uninterrupted, as it is important to safeguard the patient's health. Then each TB treatment different in people who have both TB and COVID-19. It is, it is very important to continue the treatment. And then the risk of death in TB patients approaches 50% if left untreated. So it is very critical that TB services are not disrupted during the COVID-19 response. So these are just some of the things which I have told you so far. There are some similarities and differences between TB and COVID. TB is a more longer disease existing. It is only COVID for a few months. There is established case distribution, stigma, burden on health services, both create the problem. Then rapid policy response in a TB, it is very difficult actually. Then a resource mobilization is slow in case of TB. And then COVID-19, you see with what rapidity everything, the whole country, the whole world, they just got up for the COVID-19 response. Then it can be then the prevention, contact tracing, and so many other things. And then the other thing, it is how the TB and COVID, they are given importance. The global health emergency was declared in 1993 TB, but you see in COVID, it is only 3-4 months back, but then you see the type of response in the country. Then other thing, of course, the pathogens, how it spreads, how it is diagnosed, the infectiousness, prevention, symptoms, treatment, and vaccine. We all know that, so I'm not going to that for the sake of the time. So I think the important difference, if you see many of these symptoms are the cough, fever, then there is some slight difference. The difficulty in breathing, it is not a very common feature in TB, but whereas the other systemic features like weight loss, loss of appetite, night sweats, extreme tiredness are more common with TB. And then symptoms of COVID-19 usually appears quickly and disappear after about 7-10 days. On the other hand, TB symptoms appear gradually over the course of several weeks and persist if they are not treated. And then you see some of the other observations, the MTB infection likely increases the susceptibility to SARS-CoV-2 and increases COVID-19 severity, but this requires validation in larger study. And again, you see the reproduction number, when the reproduction number or R0 for COVID-19 about 2.2, that means that 1 person of COVID-19 will infect 2.2, whereas in the same thing for TB, there are many other factors, but actually by and large, it is a little more, about 4, even it may be as high as 12. Then you see what are the other issues? Then the COVID-19 pandemic has overtaken every other health issue. There's grave consequences for existing and undiagnosed TB patients. globally, particularly for low and middle income countries. TB control program will be strained due to diversion of resource, inevitable loss of health system focus. Some activities cannot or will not be prioritized. Then a reduction in quality of TB care and worse outcomes. And then TB often have underlying comorbidities and lung, as I have told you. So in them again, as I told you, their symptoms are similar: diagnostic confusion, worsening the stigmatization. You know, the children with the TB will get collateral damage because of these things. And then, but the positive aspect is that lessons for COVID-19 could be learned from the vast experience of running global TB control program. So in fact, that is how in our own government, you know that the DDG TB is a nodal person for the government of India for the COVID-19, and many of our TB control workers are, are helping the COVID response. Then again, on the other hand, the rapid and relatively well so coordinated response for COVID-19 program can also be utilized for TB program, vice versa. If you can act so swiftly for COVID, why not for TB? You know, this is a very important slide. Please have some focus. This is by the study by the Global TB Program of the WHO. So this is, if you can see in the axis that shows the when there is a decrease in the case dissection, and in the upper part you can see the excess TB deaths, right? So this again, this shows that it is estimated that additional TB deaths are in excess of an expected 1.47 million TB deaths that would have been expected, you know, in the absence of COVID-19, based on the recent trends prior to 2020. That means it was expected in the globe there will be about 1.47 million TB deaths. But say they take an example, if global TB case detection decreases by an average of 25% over a period of 3 months as compared to the level detection before the pandemic, then you see there will be an additional 1,90,000 TB deaths that will be predicted, which is about 13% increase. So that will bring to the total to of about 1.66 million TB deaths. This is what we had observed in 2015. So this is because it has got some connection with the end TB strategic milestone. Then say for example another scenario, if it is dropped by 50% over a period of 3 months, then again the number of TB deaths will increase to about 1.85 million. That is another 26% increase. Again will be back to square one, what was reported in the 2012. If these things happen, I think these are very serious issues. So what will happen? There will be major disruption in TB case detection that could result in an additional 400,000 lives lost. And then you can see in 2018, 1.49 million deaths. So then if it is there is a 50% reduction in the TB case detection, then the death rate will be going on to 1.85 million. This is what are the modeling done by the WHO. Now, if say for example in China, you see the national TB case detection in February 20 dropped by 20%. Indonesia again, it dropped by 68% in January to March. Then of course the same thing was not observed in Brazil. So therefore then this is again, as I have already told you, between 20 to 25 there will be more TB deaths. Then as we all know, there will be far fewer visits, enough medications, universal safety precaution, TB should receive equal attention. Then the clinician, what they should do, recall by telephone. People with TB and treatment should have a number so that they can contact the physician. The move to all oral regimen for drug resistant TB. So who is going to give injection? Then again TB, HIV, they should be started on ART on the same day if they have not already receiving ART. Then adherence counseling is important and should be carried out by phone. Then hands-off approach to TB care without compromising the care. Then continue the contact screening. Then various ways of the monitoring by video observed therapy or the self-administered therapy. mobile phone supported adherence strategies such as 99 dots, etc. Then what are the opportunity? As I told you, complementary COVID-19 and TB response can assist in curbing, both can utilize the capacity building efforts, surveillance and monitoring systems. Robust programs can use diagnostic tools like CBNAT and the chest X-ray, triage in the health center setting, cough etiquettes, contact tracing in the community, infection control in health centers, TB response, which includes community volunteers, may be activated for awareness raising, prevention, and early notification in COVID-19. But however, then you see, this is the new diseases and old threats. So what will be the threats? There will be quarantine, and their physical distancing will lead to stigma and discrimination. Frontline healthcare workers, they are well trained, equipped, and protected. So if they are not, if they are diverted their work, then the TB work will suffer. Then the investment and research on a vaccine and new drugs is a good opportunity. And then importance of prioritizing health, allocating financial and human resources, and universal health coverage. So these are the opportunities, or these are the issues, threats, but these are also opportunity. In the face of a pandemic, the prevention and the treatment of killer disease must continue. So now, what is another 3-4 slides about how the NTP, our NTP is responding during the COVID-19. You see, so these are the various issues. I think they are affected in the new TB cases, like case detection, notification, diagnosis, initiation of treatment, maintenance, like and the drug resistant TB service, TB comorbidities, like the direct benefit transfer, IEC, contact tracing, procurement, human resources, supervision, and TB research. And then this can also have an effect on the TB patients already on treatment, like maintaining the continuation phase, follow-up, supervision, supply chain. And so these are the issues the NTP need to take into account. Please have a focus on this slide. I will ask everybody to have a focus. This is a NICHER data board, dashboard. I know I just checked it today morning at 10:15, and then by 26th July, please see the last row, from the public sector, out of the targeted number, 38%. It is now almost 7 months over, friends. From the public sector, only 38% cases are notified. From the private sector is 28%. And then overall, till date, it's going to be 7 months. We have only case notified to the NICHER is only 33%. Another 5 months left, maybe another 20-25% if the COVID-19 does some mercy on us, then maybe the figure will improve, but you can see what will be the case notification. And please remember my previous slides, what I have told you from the various predictions. Again, this is a data that showed the total and the private sector. Weekly counts of reported cases dropped by 75% in the 3 weeks following 22 March. So average weekly cases were 11,367 against that figure of 45,875 because of strict national lockdown implementation, delays in entering the data into NICHER, reduced attendance to health services, reassignment of health personnel, and a reduction in the TB testing and detection. Again, you see, this is just a week back, a publication by Dr. Anurag Bhargav, this is a review article in Indian Journal of Tuberculosis. You see, this shows the drop in the case detection. This is a bar diagram depicting under detection in percentage of tuberculosis in India during this COVID-19 between 25 March to 19 May 2020. The things will not be different now. You see, overall, it starts from 77% to from 23% to as high as 77% in different states and union territories. And overall figure is 59% drop during that period, right? Then what are the other issues? So then again, the authors, Dr. Anurag Bhargava, you know, is very much focused on malnutrition. We all know that 1 unit decrease in BMI, that means a loss of 2 to 3 kg weight loss, may result in the poor due to lockdown and its aftermath. You know, so many migrations, poor, loss of job, all these things, there is no time to discuss that. An increase in estimated incident TB by 1,85,000, a 59% reduction. As I told you in the previous slide, TB case detection between end March and May 2020, there will be an additional 87,000 TB deaths. That is an increase by about 20%. You know, if you see the TB report of 2020, if we are death in that in 2019 was 89,000 something. Because now you see only because of this case detection issue, we'll get an additional death rate. There are disadvantages, particularly the social groups living in states with higher levels of poverty, undernutrition, migrant workers. These are the issues. So malnutrition will lead into these problems also. Then about the TB services, this is again Dr. Singla as a group, they have written this letter to this journal. They have shown that is a major hurdle, delay in diagnosis. The same things which I have already told you. This thing.
सर आप म्यूट हो गए. You will need to unmute yourself, Dr. Behra.
Okay, is it okay now?
Yes, sir. We can hear you now.
Okay. You know, so why it is not moving? It is not moving.
Just click,
Huh?
just click on a side and use arrow button. So just click anywhere on the slide, sir. Yes, sir. Now you can, start.
Okay. You know, I think there is a positive effect also of COVID and TB. You know, for so many years, we are talking about the infection control measures in TB. You see this airborne infection, but now with the COVID, everybody you see is using a mask, then the cough etiquettes, using face covers, social distancing. I think this is one thing which we must learn for COVID, for the TB control, and that will be good airborne infection control practices. You see what the other countries are doing. You know, these are some of the recent publications that shows what Zimbabwe has done, what China has done. You know, the most important, Zimbabwe is a country which is having a high TB HIV setting. So they have rechanneled the funds for the PPEs, more sputum containers and collection through community health workers, symptomatic triaging, protection of laboratory personnel, continued testing TB, HIV, gene export cartridges, providing drugs for, for 1 month during the intensive period and 3 months for the continuation phase, and the distribution of a fact sheet in the local language about COVID-19. What China has done, their main focus about the DRTB centers. As we know, the DRTB centers are mainly in the main hospitals and the medical colleges in our case. So they are giving more focus because they are since diverted. So that is an issue for them. This is again in Africa what they have done. They have done the best practice training for COVID-19 identification and management for all primary healthcare providers, because districts where their TB service is mainly through the primary healthcare providers. So they have given more attention for the primary healthcare providers. So then there will be additional consideration like patient support, telephone monitoring, contact identification, provision for children, pregnant and breastfeeding women, and then the other issues, then so obviously, ladies and gentlemen, ending TB in India will be derailed by COVID-19. It could derail the progress made by the NTP on ending TB by 2025 because of disruption to treatment, other interventions, supply chains of critical medicines, medical supplies, particular attention to healthcare protection, communication, maintenance of essential services, disinfection of assets, epidemic preparedness, and so many things that we have already discussed. Fortunately, if you have seen the Nikkei Patrika, so this last issue has focused on that, and there is a full article about how to respond. And then this is so then again, we have actually in fact learned the core public health delivery system, how it is to be improved. And then the NTP, again, we have got a new normal in our endeavor to provide patient-centric TB care. The innovations like doorstep delivery of drugs to TB patients, teleconsultation, active screening for TB through outreach activities in response to the pandemic. So a boon for many patients during the lockdown who struggle to access the public or private health care, then minimal visits to health facilities, then digital innovations. And then again, as I have already told you, the figure I have already told you people, the short-term lockdown for 2 months of lockdown and 2 months of restoration, you see there will be additional case. So the estimates are much bleaker for protracted lockdowns and slower restoration period. If it continues, I don't know what is happening after 31st July. It is clear now that the pandemic will result in severe disruption of NTP service delivery and a presumptive TB cases and TB patient care seeking behavior with the profound consequences on NTPs trying to reach the NTB strategy. So this is a little overcrowded side. What I am basically, it shows the annual TB report 2020, the upper two panels shows the efficacy of treatment of MDR and XDR TB. We know for MDR it is less than 50%, and for around 30 to 35%. But you see the middle one, which is the yellow one, that shows we have used now the Sutter MDR TB regimen. So what we have achieved, as per that report, the success rate is 60%. From 45-48%, it is 60% under the program. You see, for the Sutter MDR TB treatment, if there is disruption, it has already occurred between March to till date. So if a Sutter period of 9 months, if there is a disruption, when the patient is not getting injection, when the DRTB centers are closed down or working halfway, not halfway, who knows? If there is interruption of a few weeks, few months, what will be ultimate outcome? Nobody knows. Nobody can predict it, but obviously the result will be disastrous. See the lower one, it is the bedaquiline containing regimen. Again, the publication from NITRD, Dr. Singla, Dr. Sarin's group. You see, by 6 months, we could achieve culture conversion 98%. The bedaquiline regimen has already started by the program. Many thousands of patients are already on bedaquiline treatment. If again that service is disrupted, no follow-up, no drug supply, all those issues which I discussed, where we will be. Please imagine. That is what just I wanted to draw your kind attention. So these are the specific issues. This I will just finish here. The program staff being drafted into COVID-19. Then staff shortage or increased workloads. TB facilities are used for the COVID-19. National laboratory diagnostic services focusing on COVID-19. Disruption in sputum transportation. Disruption in providing different types of treatment. People avoid going to or have no possibilities to reach hospitals, medical clinics. Decreased number of people presenting, accessing service for TB. Active TB case finding activities are stopped. Physical social distancing measures and that has interrupted the treatment support. Significant concern on the management of DRTB, as I have already told you, as hospitals are severely affected. Lack of personal protective equipment. Drug stockouts and procurement issues. Global transport networks are reduced. Then manufacturer of TB medications are likely to be affected. Delays in the procurement chain. Domestic funding constraints for TB comorbidities. Issue of TB, diabetes, mortality. And again, Remember the TB research during COVID-19. I think many of you in the audience are the part of the TB research consortium. You know, I think Dr. Singla, Dr. Sareen, Dr. Prahlad Kumar, these are the 4 people I immediately remember now. For the last 1 month, you know, we are fighting, we are sitting every day. And we have got now, we have to vaccine trial. There is a great disadvantage. We are not getting sputum positive cases. Their contacts are to be vaccinated. You know, that is only one example I am giving. So we are with much difficulties, with much effort by the expert group, by the ICMR, as well as the investigators all over the country. We are getting, so that is what we see day in and day out. Today again in the afternoon, we are going to review. Every day we are doing that. So what I'm trying to say, how the TB research during COVID-19 is also severely affected in this country. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell at the end, there is urgently we should maintain the continuity of essential services, innovative people-centered approaches, as well maximizing joint support to tackle both diseases. It is important that the progress made in TB prevention and care is not reversed by the COVID-19 pandemic. Finding and treating people with TB remains the fundamental pillars of TB prevention and care, and those would require maintained attention. No doubt you must have seen there are already circulars from the Joint Secretary as well as the DGTB, Dr. Sachdeva. There are that I am not going to show because I have already taken a lot of time. So it is already all STOs, everybody is doing that, and all those basic principles are being followed. They are being instructed. I don't know how many of them are possible, because I told our bitter experience about how to get a sputum positive case. Even if you get somebody, then the next day there is a lockdown, and then all these issues associated with this. So ladies and gentlemen, I will stop here. And this is how the country is going to face the problem, particularly the TB. Our TB control program is facing the problem, and obviously the program and all of us need to contribute and see how we should move forward, so that obviously I don't think NTB 2025 will be a possibility, but because I don't think of negative, we should think of positive. And with this, I thank you all for your kind attention.
So probably you will not be able to hear us clapping, but of course, it's a very nice lecture, very informative, and we have learned a lot from this didactic. There are many questions, but some of the questions you have already answered, sir. But I'll still ask you those questions, and maybe you can answer them, sir. One of the questions are that what is the current data on COVID and TB co-infection? Like how many TB patients are suffering? How many number of deaths are there amongst the co-infected patients? And what are the arrangements? You have already informed us what arrangements are made to avoid these interruptions and how to avoid delays in diagnosis and treatment, sir.
Yes, Dr. Nita, as I told you, we don't have to be very frank. We don't have an information about the co-infection of how many COVID and TB patients are there. Only whatever I could gather, I showed the review articles, and then there are few, editorials coming in Indian journals, such as one by Dr. Prasad has already come, and then a few more are coming. I know that, but again, we don't have the exact figure. Unfortunately, that is not being collected. And regarding the other issues, you have to diagnose the issues up in their diagnosis and all in the course of my talk.
Thank you, sir. There's another question which is asking that, is there any data suggesting the decrease in number of TB case notifications? That
yes,
you have already shown.
I showed you the Nikkei data, the I said 10 AM today I detected, and I showed that chart by Anurag Bhargav. That is again our Nikkei data.
Yes,
you see, I said it is only so far, after 7 months, we have only detected 33% of the cases. By this time, we should have Now 70% of our target case detection, it is only 33%.
It's, so there's one question which asks, what precautions are required in sputum transportation for all the patients during this pandemic?
Yes, the sputum transportation, obviously the main thing we should be very careful about, because the sputum, if the patient is having, in addition to the COVID-19, the this is the one should be careful about aerosol generation. It should not be there, that should be avoided, fully packed, and then the person who is handling that, then he should be fully geared with the masks. That is how I will be suggest that.
Right,
And
sir.
in the laboratory, of course, the laboratory technician should be, while handling that, should be careful. But only thing, while as we know, if we are transport means if it is coming from the patient to the laboratory, so the one should be careful about during both while transporting as well as while handling these samples at the laboratory.
Thank you, sir. So there's a question which says that since everybody is wearing a mask, is there any data which suggests that there could be decrease in transmission of tuberculosis?
Obviously, that is that is what I told you, because in fact the cough etiquettes and then the wearing mask, that will, I'm talking as far as TB is concerned. So the droplet infection, the droplet transmission obviously will be much less. It is the source. If the person is a TB patient and he is wearing a mask, because everybody is using a mask, so obviously the droplet infection will be prevented to a large extent.
Thank you, sir. So then there are a lot of administrative concerns which have come up in different questions, like somebody has mentioned that their biosafety cabinet has been shifted. Somebody has mentioned that the DTOs have been diverted for COVID care. Then some dot centers are not doing the CBNAT and sputum microscopy. So there are many administrative issues in different states where they feel that the TB services are suffering due to COVID services.
I think that is what I brought out. I told you that how everything, the manpower, everybody, healthcare workers are diverted. And you are very right. And I think on the other hand, actually the COVID response also, we have to respond to the COVID pandemic also. So I think we have to maintain a balance about two things. But I am perfectly agree. That is how, as a group, as a community, as a group, we must draw the attention of the government and of the program. There are guidelines. I could not show you those slides. The Dr. Sachdeva has given guidelines. The Joint Secretary has given guidelines. That's what I'm telling. They're only on orders, but practically you are very right. Practically that is what is happening. I hear in Chandigarh, here I'm hiring my group of medical officers in my own institute. They are given COVID duties. So they are complaining this time, but again, as you know, this is the time. I can't also help them. These are the decisions, these are the policy decisions of the government. I think a balance should be maintained between the two things.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure there'll be many people who would be wanting to ask you live questions and must be wanting to comment on your talk, because we have lots in our chat section where they have appreciated your talk a lot. And Dr. Jayakishan has given us many ways where we can overcome the problems that we are facing. Now, I want your permission. How should we go about? Generally, we have 1 hour of session, which we have.
I think we should see that other case should be very quickly can present.
Yeah. So thank you, sir. Then I'm not taking any more questions, and I am now going to the case. For this, I invite Dr. Vellappan, who is the Assistant Professor at Department of Pulmonary Medicine at PGI Chandigarh, for case presentation. Over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon to everyone. I would be going straight to the case. This is a case of a 65-year-old gentleman who had presented fever and cough for the past 5 days. I'm unable to see the presentation. Can you please?
Just a second.
Yeah. He was diagnosed with a history of pulmonary tuberculosis 2 years back when the sputum was positive. A drug-sensitive tuberculosis was diagnosed. He was declared cured after he had taken 6 months of ATT from the DOT center. Clinical and radiological response to ATT was present. This time he had presented with fever and cough for 3 days. On examination, he was conscious and oriented. However, he was tachypneic, had hypoxia in room air with a SpO2 of 90%, and he had technically fit for the definition for SARI of ICMR, which is 10 days or less than that of fever and cough with or without hypoxemia. He was investigated, he was hospitalized, and his oropharyngeal and nasopharyngeal swab combined was sent, and it was positive for SARS-CoV-2, and he was diagnosed with having COVID. His HP was 12.7 at admission. The total leukocyte count was 4,800, and his differential leukocyte count showed that he had lymphopenia, and the neutrophil lymphocyte ratio was greater than 5. Also, he had a normal renal functions. The D-dimer was elevated. It was 0.75 microgram per ml, and the ferritin was elevated, and CRP was elevated to 20 milligram per liter. He was currently not on any antitubercular regimen. The patient was taken to the intensive care unit for want of oxygen supplementation. He was started on oxygen therapy with a target of more than 94% SpO2. Dexamethasone 6 mg per day was started. He was started on low molecular weight heparin enoxaparin 1 mg per kg. This was in a prophylactic dose which was started for him. The remdesivir was also started as per the hospital protocol, 200 milligram on the first day, followed by 100 milligram once a day. He also had a comorbid illness of diabetes, and his X-ray I will be showing in some time. Yeah, the X-ray below shows that he had this was the X-ray which was done 2 years back when he was diagnosed with drug-sensitive tuberculosis. As we can see, the left upper lobe there was infiltrate, and the right mid-zone and lower zone were also infiltrated, and the costophrenic angle was blunted. After the course of ATT, he had improvement and there was radiological resolution. This was 2 years back. This time we can see the patient had a right mid-zone and lower zone infiltrate, and also we can see left lower zone infiltrate. There are bilateral peripheral consolidations, and we can see the endotracheal tube and the ECG monitor indicating the criticality of the situation. So now there are several issues in this patient which needs to be discussed. So the common questions one would arise is active or previously treated TB a risk factor for COVID-19? As has been told by sir, the data on this is limited. Now, one of the recent studies have told that severe and non-severe COVID-19 who have been hospitalized, there was no difference between the presence of active or previously treated tuberculosis. Active tuberculosis, the data is sparse. Whatever data available so far from literature from China and other countries is based on previously treated tuberculosis, just like in our case. So there is no data so far to suggest that previously treated tuberculosis is an additional risk factor for COVID. However, coming to the second question, does severity of illness in TB COVID-19 more in comparison with non-TB COVID case? Coming to this question, the answer is not very simple, because previously treated tuberculosis could be variable. One who has a sequelae like fibrocavity disease or a chronic pulmonary aspergillosis in the background of old tuberculosis is likely to have a chronic lung disease, and he might have a more severe illness as compared to the non-TB COVID case. So how to rule out reactivation of TB prior to immunosuppressive therapy? As we can see, the management of COVID-19 presently is largely supportive, and the therapy in the first week has been one or the other antiviral drug, and the protocol keeps changing. And the second week of illness of COVID, we generally tend to use immunosuppressive agents. Some of them include tocilizumab, and recently the role of dexamethasone has come up. So the reactivation of TB, primarily we have to rule out by clinical history. As sir has also projected, a short duration of history, a short duration of fever and cough, goes more in favor of a COVID, and we wouldn't suspect a reactivation of TB upfront. However, a longish history, presence of weight loss and appetite loss or hemoptysis, and suggestive X-ray could point more towards a reactivation of TB. Coming to how to treat moderate severity of TB, moderate severity COVID-19, with or without TB, the treatment protocol remains the same. So the management would be the initial week so far, remdesivir can be used, though its effectiveness remains only to limiting the duration of hospital stay in illness. And it
Dr.
has,
Vaidyapan, sorry to interrupt. I think
yes,
let's
ma'am.
open the case for discussion
Yes,
and
ma'am.
let people ask question, and then we come back to what are the possible reasons and how to go about it. So I think is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we open the case for discussion that there is a case who was treated for tuberculosis earlier and now has presented to us with acute illness. So if you have any as to what all needs to be seen in the case, any investigations and all, we open the case for a discussion. And then we'll ask our experts, Professor Behra and Professor Singla, to answer the queries.
You see, I'm sorry, I'm taking the lead in the question. This is for both Dr. Behra as well as Dr. Vaidyapan. This is, sir, sometimes what we are noticing in the COVID treating hospitals. We were interacting with people from AIMS Delhi who have treated more than 2,400 people by now, as well as Safdarjung Hospital. That once they have a patient admitted with COVID and there are symptoms or X-ray findings suggestive of TB, they are afraid of collecting sputum specimen. Because in this ward, there is no place for this. So what they do practically is, in case it is suggestive of TB, even X-ray, they start tentative medication without collecting the sputum specimen. So you are wondering whether sputum can be good specimen for TB as well as COVID, and the other way around, the nasopharyngeal swab, which is commonly used for COVID, can it be used for TB also? So do we have data on this about for the diagnosis of both using the similar kind of specimen? What is the existing data on this issue?
You see, I showed one of my slides. Even the sputum, if it is produced, that can be used for, obviously sputum will be used for TB diagnosis, and also the same sputum can be used for RT-PCR. But you are very right. Since the attention is not collecting sputum, nobody coughs coming here, but therefore, and by the time the patient is admitted, they are already RT-PCR positive by the nasal pharynx. So therefore, they are admitted or they are sent to the but that sputum or the bronchial lavage, which is collected, which can be collected, so that can be tested for both also.
Thank you, sir.
Any other question regarding the case?
Hello, Dr. Vaidyapan. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Dr. Vaidyapan, in this situation, you must have investigated the patient for tuberculosis also from all point of view. So did you find that it was suggestive of active tuberculosis also in this case? Hello?
Yes, sir. I am able to hear you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So here the patient was intubated and the endotracheal tube aspirate for AFB was sent, and it was probably negative, and the history was also not suggestive. So the further investigation were not taken up for this patient since the history was also short and his previous X-ray was normal. And going by the history and the X-ray, it was suspected to be a COVID pneumonia.
Okay, so we rule out. But in such cases, sometimes maybe that the sputum or this investigation are negative, but still there is a possibility of active tuberculosis as the patient was actually previously tuberculosis, and COVID actually potentiates or reactivate. There are some, you see, evidences are coming. Like to the patients on treatment for tuberculosis along with, of course, the treatment of COVID.
I think Professor Janmeja, at least for the time for reactivation, of course, these COVID patients fortunately are 5 to 7 days. So at least during this period, there will be no activation within 5 or 7 days. I think that is only one thing. And secondly, at least as he said, the lavage or the aspirate are negative. So I think that way reasonably the TB at that point of time was ruled out.
Okay. Right.
So secondly, what some people may question, why not to treat empirically? The disadvantage could be like for drug-sensitive TB, rifampicin being a liver enzyme inducer, it can interfere with some of the anti-COVID medicine being used, especially like for the chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine, some of the antiviral drugs, used for the HIV. So that again, we have to keep in mind how strong is the suspicion for COVID and TB together. Similarly, for when we are treating a case of MDR TB or we are suspecting it, again, many of the anti-COVID drugs like hydroxychloroquine, previously we are using azithromycin, they can potentiate the cardiotoxic effects of bedaquiline, delamanid, clofazimine, etc. by increasing the QTC prolongation. So that again shows that we should give our best to really diagnose whether the person is having TB or not. Like in these cases, once lavage is collected, we should submit it for both for CBNAT as well as for the MER and culture, and then only we should take a call.
Yeah, so just to add, what I'll say is that you see the clinical picture of a patient is very important. And in the present context, the clinical picture with a 3-day history and a rapid deterioration in the chest X-ray really does not, you see, give some idea on TB. Yes, of course, this is a person who was previously treated for TB. I mean, it's not that one is not aware, but usually TB will, as you in your presentation have also stated, that it has more of a chronic nature of illness, and symptomatology will generally be of a longer duration rather than this 3 days. So in fact, you see, one of the differentiating features is that only whenever we start testing for COVID, it's the acuteness of the situation wherein, you know, COVID becomes a better diagnostic, differential diagnosis rather than tuberculosis, right? And when we saw the X-ray of the patient or the end of TB treatment, that was more or less clear. So to have this rapid radiological change within a span of 3-4 days in TB is very, very unlikely, sir. So I think TB suspicion in this case should not be of major concern, and we should go along in terms of treatment of COVID as has been done in this particular case. My question here is, what was the response to this treatment that the patient got? I mean, he got the standard of care what we have as on date, except for you know, giving him drugs for averting the cytokine storm, except for the steroid that was given. Toci was not used, or so I mean, what was the response to the therapy? If that could be.
The patient is still on ventilator and is currently being managed for the same. He's static, sir. Yet to see the course fully.
So he is neither improving nor deteriorating. That's what you want to say. Okay. And how many days has he been on treatment?
5.
Just 5 days, and post symptoms that would make it 8 days, right? Okay. Okay. So are you thinking of adding on any other medication in addition to what he's already getting?
Sir, it will be largely supportive care. The dexamethasone will take some time to act. In the second week, maybe we can consider using other therapies which are being tried right now. So antiviral is already on. So if he is a candidate, then maybe tocilizumab can be tried in this patient.
Do you have facility of IL-6 in PGI?
No, sir, not yet, sir.
No, not yet. Okay.
Yeah, but I would say that, you see, in critically ill patients like this, intervention early is always preferred, even though there are still no recommendations. These are still experimental drugs, but an intervention early will be more beneficial than an intervention later on. So as a treating clinician, you could consider TOSI at an early stage rather than later.
Hello, Dr. Valiappan.
Yes.
One point, how one hypothesis also coming mostly from Italy, that there's a disseminated intravascular coagulation also is some role. Is there any some role? What's your comment about this? Disseminated intravascular coagulation in the COVID patients.
Yes, exaggerated hypercoagulable state and physiology like pulmonary thromboembolism is being potentially one of the causes for hypoxemia in these patients. So that is why in more critically ill patients, we straight away go for therapeutic doses of low molecular weight heparin, especially based on the D-dimer levels. So if the D-dimer level is elevated more than 500 or 0.5 in the other units, we start on a therapeutic dose of anticoagulation now exactly for this reason. And in fact, hypoxemia has been largely attributed to this aspect and less so of ARDS as opposed to other viral illnesses.
So you are already giving this therapy in this patient?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
OD dosage was at the initial point, but once the patient was shifted and the D-dimer was elevated, a therapeutic dose was started.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Dr. Valiappan, can you see the chat? There are some questions in the chat. If they are not answered, you are requested to take them. There is one question which is not related to this case, but they've asked, is there any data on extrapulmonary and COVID co-infection?
Extrapulmonary TB.
And COVID.
Extrapulmonary TB.
Yes, sir. Extrapulmonary TB with COVID co-infection. Are there any? Is there any data?
Yes, in that series, which is the review of Professor Rajendra Prasad, which I showed, that CGN group, this is the global, that is some network. So they showed out of their cases, 49 cases, they saw 8 cases of extrapulmonary TB.
So there is one question which says that the same X-ray facility is used for the pulmonary TB patients as well as COVID patients. So are there any specific guidelines for these places?
Yes, there are guidelines, you know, the Radiological Society of, I think, North America, they have given guidelines how to do what precautions to be taken for the chest X-ray and then the CT scan. So the guidelines are there. But actually in India, coming to India, what exactly is happening, that has already been an issue. That is already been an issue, particularly in the major hospital, who could provide, say for example, if you have a separate COVID ward or you have an area, then you can, they put separate machines. But you are very right, these are issues, these are major issues. But I think they are taking adequate precautions for that, using the PPEs and all that, knowing the patient, whether he is COVID positive or not, whether he is a non-COVID patient or not, then you take precautions.
Can I ask a question, sir?
Sure,
Yes,
madam.
yes, ma'am, please.
Looking at almost all COVID patients who are either at home or even hospitalized getting dexamethasone or other forms of steroids, as well as many of the moderate and severe patients getting tocilizumab. Do we see that we are likely to get a surge of TB patients because of this gross immunosuppression which is needed to treat COVID?
You are very right, madam. That is one of the important worries, I think. When I told about that, I showed that slide, direct and indirect effects. So this is a worry, because people getting dexamethasone, and if we have got, particularly when we have got so much of other issues associated with this, So we expect there will be issues coming up.
I mean, we would get more cases amongst those who had latent TB going into active, as well as all those cases which we have treated with so many efforts in last so many years would also come up with reactivation of
it. That is the danger.
Well, sir, what I can add here is that you see all these medications that we talk of, the immunosuppressives, we are giving for a relatively short time. I mean, they are not long-term interventions. And because of that, that could be a saving clause in terms of, this, so to say, relapse of a previous TB infection or disease. So in case we were giving these steroids for a longer time, then as per guidelines for any disease, one would always resort to, chemoprophylactic treatment with isoniazid. But here, because the treatment here is just for about 10 days, a week to 10 days, I don't think the immunosuppression as such will be to that extent that it may reactivate an earlier TB disease.
So what you say is very true, but that is in the guidelines. In reality, what we are observing in COVID cases are that many of the patients continue to be not only symptomatic for breathlessness and have hypoxia, but have a residual disease in the lungs when seen on CT and X-rays. And these are the patients who are continued on steroids for a pretty long time. Nothing less than 4 weeks that I am seeing here.
Sir, in this situation, in continuation of the same, Dr. Behera, my question is that if the person is already having a latent disease, which is most common in our country, or in this particular situation, is there any role of preventive chemotherapy like the INH prophylaxis in these patients? Because there is a chance that it is a good facilitator of development of tuberculosis. And mortality is going to be high, as you have already projected, it goes high as 26%. So is there any role of preventive, INH preventive therapy in these patients, or the patient those who are having mild to moderate disease for some benefit?
You see, Dr. Janmejha, Dr. Sareen has answered that question already, because these are short term, use of whether it is tocilizumab or dexamethasone. Of course, there are issues for future, which Dr. Radha said. But you see, for many other immunosuppressed states also, in our country, we are not following that type of INH prophylaxis yet. Not all cases, we are not doing that as a universal way, except in HIV. That is one of the things, and other cases. So I think you are right, that may be considered. But here, as Dr. Sareen told, they are short-term use, number one. Number two, these are very seriously sick patients. We do not know many of these issues, whether these things they are subsequently they are developing tuberculosis or not. But maybe these are the types of cases one has to keep in mind. But I think immediately we can't tell it this way or that way.
Sir, I just like to add for the information of all people participating that now the country is thinking of establishing, surveillance centers, and wherein these COVID patients, in addition to there being a COVID registry, these individuals will be followed up over a period of time to understand the long-term impact of this particular disease. And maybe we get the answer to this question of their TB susceptibility also, or their predisposition. But that, as on date, as you rightly said, we really don't have too much information on this. We are, still struggling to combat the problem at hand, So, but I'm sure that somewhere down the line, when we review all that we have, definitely there will be answers to some unanswered questions as on date.
Thank you, sir. Before I take the next question, we are putting up a feedback poll. Kindly answer those polls, and we'll keep having our discussion. So simultaneously, Gaurav, can you put up the poll, please? Yeah. Yes, sir, we can have the discussion now. So there's a question on the chat which is asking that if patient is already on the second line ATT and if he develops COVID, is there any drug interaction or any detrimental effect of these drugs on COVID condition?
Like I already mentioned on this, nowadays when you say MDR, either patient will be on the shorter regimen or all or longer regimen. And in case person is on all or longer regimen, which has bedaquiline, which has clofazimine, then there could be some interactions of the drug being used for the COVID, like especially hydroxychloroquine, lopinavir not being used now. So some of the azithromycin also not being used now. So some of the drugs which are being used for COVID treatment, they may increase the QTC interval. So these drug interactions we have to keep in mind. Even remdesivir is said to be increasing the level of bedaquiline and maybe causing the QTC prolongation. So basic things are these drug interactions we have to keep in mind. Plus, as Dr. Behra already showed, the underlying lung damage, either by TB or by the COVID, that could also be affecting the severity of the disease and the outcome also. So we have to keep that thing also in mind. So, these are the main issues when we are treating the MDR TB with COVID-19 treatment.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Singla. Are there any other questions? So before I request you to summarize the case, I would just like to say that we are going to do these TB COVID co-infection topics every 15 days or every month. So we request that if you have any interesting case that you would like to discuss, we will prepare the case and present it in this forum. Or if you have any topic that you want us to cover in this series, we will invite the experts to give us those didactics. So you have our email ID, the email ID from where you received the invitation. Please feel free to write to us regarding any topic or any case that you would like us to cover. So Dr. Singla, can you summarize the case and the recommendations for us?
Yes, you see, initially in the first half, I think the way Dr. Behra discussed about the very excellent deliberation, I must say, excellent deliberation on this topic of TB and COVID. He talked about not only the epidemiology, also talked about the various issues, epidemiological issues globally as well as in our country, how this is affecting the epidemiological situation in our country in terms of reduction in the case notification and what is going to happen or what might happen to our efforts towards the NTP, towards TB elimination, which we are looking for 2025. Then about the diagnostic issues, he discussed about the treatment issues he discussed, and he also told us about what could be the possible remedies for this. And subsequently, in the case presentation, Dr. Valiappan, in a very brief presentation, he talked about a case who presented with a moderate illness and ultimately went on to the severe illness and even required the intubation also. And he discussed their experience at the Tertiary Referral Center of PGI Chandigarh, how they are treating. So I think once we keep on having such discussions, such didactics, and as well as such case presentations, we really know what is happening in the real world. What are the challenges like about IL-6? In the Western world, I think every patient will be getting IL-6 treatment, the diagnosis. But even in a tertiary referral institute like PGI Chandigarh, and I was interacting with real people also, even they are not able to help by getting these basic investigations done, which are very essential to look for the cytokine storm. So these are also the issues in our country, and their solution, it is the program people, it is the administrators at the center who are to look for that what should we do, because once we have these things, only then we can guide the rest of the country, we can guide the world that what should be done in such cases, how should they be managed. So I think it was quite informative, the didactic as well as the case today, and I congratulate Dr. Behra sir and as well as Dr. Valiappan, and I must thank Dr. Behra sir and all the senior faculty who have joined for guiding our institute in our small efforts towards TB and COVID co-infection. So thank you very much, all of you, from my side.
Thank you, Dr. Singla, for summarizing. I would now like to thank Dr. Behra, Dr. Veliappan for making today's session such a great success. Dr. Janmeja, Dr. Bharadwaj, Dr. Sareen, Dr. Prahlad Kumar, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, and other faculty who have joined us from various medical colleges, from Nigrim, Sikkim, then we have from Cuttack, and there are many other colleagues whose name I missed because they are not there on the screen. So I thank everybody, all my colleagues who have joined this session today. Thanks a lot, and thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again. We'll keep you posted about the recommendation of today's case and about the next clinic. The details we'll be sending you on your mail, and please feel free to write us, to send us your topic and cases. We look forward to that. Thank you so much.
And in addition, Dr. Neeta, our eco-partners, Dr. Sunil, then Dr. Kumud Rai, I think really we are thankful to them for supporting our academic endeavors in this direction, and I'm sure they will keep on supporting us for all our academic endeavors. Thank you, both of you, and the other team members from ECO India. We thank all of them.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Very much, all team, you put it very nicely. We enjoyed all that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for appreciations.
Thank you for a wonderful webinar, Dr. Neeta. And you.
Thank you, Dr. Radha. Credit goes to our speakers, Dr. Behra, who made it so interesting for us.
Join next time also.
Well done, Neeta. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. We need support of all our senior faculty like you. We need your blessings and support. Only then we can proceed.
Thank you, Singla. It was wonderful.
Thank you, sir.
Prahlad Kumar, sir, pranam.
Pranam. Prahlad Saab, namaskar.
Sir, आप भी दिख गए. Pranam, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Ram bhai Santosh.
बस sir.
Sir, Rajendra Prasad ji.
जी.
Sir, Rajendra Prasad ji.
जी, नमस्कार.
Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar.
From Bombay.
Yes, Titip Chatterjee, you are always visible in every meeting. I
sir,
must compliment you.
थैंक यू सर. आप लोग से सीखने को मिलता है सर. इसकी रिकॉर्डिंग मिल सकती है सर, बिकॉज आई जस्ट केम बैक फ्रॉम द हॉस्पिटल एंड सीइंग पेशेंट्स.
I think the Neeta will answer. Neeta.
Yes, sir.
Can we get a recording of this somehow afterwards?
Yes, sir. We'll share, sir.
Could you please, because I just came back after seeing patients, so I completely missed the whole thing actually.
So we'll share with you the link for the recording.
Yeah, please, sir.
We'll be sharing the link.
Yeah, I would be very interested to follow it. Thank you.
I think Rupak, that's a good idea. You share the link so that everybody, more people can see it.
Yeah, it will be great.
Any other suggestion, sir, you have? Any other suggestion?